Whenever the topic of AI comes up, it's easy to feel, well, a little anxious, right? We've all seen the headlines, heard the stories about machines outsmarting us. And you gotta wonder, what does that mean for our future? But what if that whole story, the one that pits us against the machine, is missing the most important part of the picture?
Right, let's get straight to it, because this is the question on everybody's mind. Is this technology here to take our jobs? Or is it here to completely change the game we're all playing? To really figure that out, we actually need to rewind the clock, back to the exact moment this whole us versus them narrative really kicked off.
It all started right here, back in 1997. Now, a year earlier, IBM's supercomputer Deep Blue had lost a match, but this time it came back, and it did the unthinkable. It defeated the reigning world chess champion, the legendary Garry Kasparov. And for the public, this was just a massive moment. It kicked off this global story of man versus machine, this deep fear that our own creations were finally coming for the top spot.
And wow, this headline from Newsweek just perfectly captures that feeling, doesn't it? The brain's last stand. It really felt like a final frontier had been crossed, that human intellect itself had been challenged, and, for the very first time, beaten by a machine. But to understand what's really going on now, today, we have to look past the hype of that moment. So to move forward, we really need to deconstruct that myth. And according to experts like Dan Huttenlocher over at MIT, the first step is to get a really clear handle on what modern AI actually is. Because, it's not what you see in the movies.
So what are we talking about, really? Well, at its core, AI is just technology that's used for making decisions, making predictions, or creating content. But here's the absolute crucial difference. It gets there because it's trained on huge amounts of data. It's not like old-school software that follows a precise set of instructions. It actually learns, instead of being programmed for every single little step.
And that learning process? Well, it gives AI some really unique, almost human-like traits. It's adaptive, It can handle new situations. Its answers can be a bit imprecise, a lot like our own thinking, actually. And what's really fascinating is that it can produce emergent results, outcomes that even its own creators didn't see coming.
A really great way to think about this is to imagine a funhouse mirror. You know the kind. It reflects our world, all our data, our language, our pictures, back at us, but in a kind of distorted, unfamiliar way. It's showing us a different perception of our own reality. And that's not inherently good or bad. It's just different.
And that leads to maybe the most important point of all. AI acts as an amplifier, a massive amplifier of human behavior. So yeah, it can take our existing mistakes and our biases, and it can make them way more powerful. But, and this is a huge but, on the flip side, it can also amplify our ingenuity, our creativity, and even our efforts to be more fair and just. It magnifies what's already there in us. So, this brings us to the part of the story you probably haven't heard, because what happened after that famous Kasparov chess match, well, it completely flips that human versus machine narrative right on its head.
See, instead of walking away defeated, Garry Kasparov does something brilliant. He pioneered a new form of chess, sometimes called centaur chess, where humans and AIs team up. And the results? They were absolutely stunning. A human grandmaster is good. A supercomputer is even better. But it turns out, a human-AI team, a centaur, consistently beats them all.
And that just perfectly illustrates the real future here. The most powerful combination on the board isn't a human alone, and it's not a machine alone. It's a human with a machine. It's not about replacement, it's about augmentation. It's about partnership.
Okay, so let's see how this actually plays out in the real world. This isn't just some cool theory from a chess tournament. This partnership is already creating some pretty incredible breakthroughs in some really high-stakes fields.
I mean, just take science, for example. An AI called AlphaZero taught itself how to play chess without ever looking at a single human game, and it discovered entirely new strategies that have literally changed how human grandmasters play the game. And in biology, AI has solved the protein folding problem, predicting these complex 3D structures. That is a massive leap forward that's set to revolutionize medicine.
Or what about education? In a classroom, AI can act as what the psychologist Lev Vygotsky called a scaffold. Basically, it provides personalized, guided support that helps a student tackle a problem that's just a little bit beyond their current ability. A perfect example is practicing for a job interview in a language you're just learning. That's really hard to do alone, but with an AI partner, it suddenly becomes possible. Whoa, look at that number, 50.4%. That was the staggering drop in the S&P 500 during the worst of the 2008 financial crisis. Now, that is the kind of catastrophic loss that triggers our most irrational, panicked human responses. In a field like finance, a dispassionate AI partner can be the thing that helps us overcome our own deep-seated biases and make more rational decisions when we need to most.
Okay, so if AI is this incredibly powerful amplifier and partner, that raises a pretty huge question, right? How do we make sure it's a responsible one? And this brings us to the absolutely critical challenge of governance.
So the key insight here is to avoid treating AI like it's some new kind of person that needs its own special laws. The much smarter approach is to simply extend our existing human regulations. I mean, think about it. We regulate human doctors, lawyers, and financial advisors because their decisions have really high stakes, so we should apply those exact same rules to the use of AI in those fields. The accountability always stays with the humans who are deploying the tool.
And we have to remember why that human oversight is just so vital. This quote makes it crystal clear. Underneath it all, AI doesn't have a real moral compass. All those efforts to align it with our values, they're more like a patch, a band-aid, than a permanent fix. It can look and sound like it has a moral system, but it's just tuning, which means a clever human can often find a way around it.
So when you pull it all together, you realize the story of AI isn't really about technology at all. It's about us. It's about our choices, our values, and the kind of future we consciously decide to build with these powerful new tools.
And that brings the responsibility right back to all of us. This is not something that can be left to a small group of coders in Silicon Valley. No way. It's up to educators and doctors and artists and regular citizens to learn about this technology and to help guide its path in our own areas of expertise. That whole narrative of us versus them, that was just the opening chapter. The real story, the one that's just getting started, is about what we can achieve together. The opponent has become a partner. So the question isn't if we'll work with AI anymore. The question is how, and what will we decide to create?